Alright guys, we're going to take a look at number 34 through 37 all at once. We're examining the equation y equals 3 sine 4x. And so in question number 34 it says, what is the period of the function? If you recall our formula to our equation that we use to deal with these problems, it's y equals a sine b quantity x minus c plus d. What I'm concerned with is the b value, alright? Because the b value, if we look down here, is used to find the period. It's 360 divided by b equals the period, or 2 pi over b equals the period. So, if my equation is y equals 3 sine 4x, if I look at this, I have 2 pi over b is my equation that I'm using here. And the reason why I'm using 2 pi as opposed to 360 is that if you look at the first two answer choices, they are in terms of pi. So if you're asking about that, the reason why is because they're in terms of pi. And so b is going to be what? Well, if you look here, it's y equals 3 sine 4x. B is the coefficient in front of x, so that would be 4. So b here is 4. So we have 2 pi over 4. And if you reduce that, you get pi over 2, and that is the answer to number 34. So, pretty straightforward, just substituting into the equation. As long as you understand this wonderful equation, you should be more than okay. Looking on to the next one, it asks us, number 35 says, what is the range of the function? Now, to find the range, there's another wonderful equation that we used, which was negative a plus d, comma a plus d. And note those bars actually mean absolute value. So if a was negative, you'd be taking the positive version of it. Here, fortunately, a is 3, so it's not complicated. And so you'll see that I put negative 3 plus 0. Now the question is, where did I get 0 from? Well, there is actually no d value given here, so it looks like so. But if you wrote it with the d value, it would just mean that you're adding 0, because 0 plus anything is just the anything. And so this equation, even though it doesn't have a d value written there, you could say it's plus 0, so I put in plus 0. That's a little excessive. You could have just really just broken it down straight to negative 3, comma 3. Notice that they are in the brackets as opposed to parentheses. So the answer there is, of course, going to be C. And I would also encourage you to pay very close attention. You may have in tests, you may have parentheses negative 3, 3, and you could also have a bracket negative 3, 3. So it is in brackets because we do include those points. All right, hope that's good. Let's go on to the next one. 36, what is the amplitude of the curve? Amplitude, based on our handy-dandy equation, is going to be the a value, and the amplitude is going to be thus 3. One little note here, if this equation said y equals negative 3 sine 4x instead of positive 3 sine 4x, negative, the amplitude would still be 3. It wouldn't be negative 3, it would just be 3. So it would be positive 3. And the reason why it would just still be positive is the amplitude refers to the magnitude, maybe you've heard of that in physics, the magnitude, which is the distance. So hopefully that helps you out there. So if you did see it like a y equals negative 3 sine 4x, it would still be 3, not negative 3. Okay, cool. And let's see here. The next question does relate to this. Says, what are the critical points of the curve? So if you recall, right here, the parent function has critical points at 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. These were the points, at least the x values, that we use to generate the unit circle. Not the unit circle, I'm sorry. To generate the parent functions of sine, cosine, and all those other wonderful functions. So what we do is we take the parent functions and those parent critical points, and the formula we ended up using was divide by b plus c. Now notice that there is no c value in this equation. If I wanted to put a c value, I could say 3 sine 4x minus 0 plus 0. So you could write it that way. And again, all I'm doing is I'm using this equation again and substituting the value. So you could do that, and you would arrive here But I think it's clear enough to see that there is no C value. And all you gotta do is divide by 4. So I'm literally gonna take all these points here, and I would divide by 4. But to be 100% honest, all I really have to divide by 4 is the second value. I mean, clearly the first one, 0 divided by 4 is 0. But 90 divided by 4 is what? Well, it'd be the same thing as 45 divided by 2, but let's go ahead and just do 90. Oops. Clear. 90 divided by 2 by 4 is 22.5. And there is our answer. And why is that all I have to do? Well, if I look at the question, let's look at the question. Look at your answer choices. 0, 90, 182, 73, 60, clearly that's wrong. 0, 3, 6, no, clearly that's wrong. 0, 22.5, 45, okay, notice that it says 22.5, so that's could be a possibility. And the other one's 0, 270. So the only one that makes sense after the first one is 22.5. Now you could go through and you could go through and calculate every single critical point if you wanted to. But there is something else here that I think is informative, and that's also that this function, the very last value, is 90, right? And that's what we said in regards earlier to what the we look back at question number 34 right here. If you look at 34, remember we got the answer to be pi over 2, but pi over 2 is just 90 degrees. So that makes sense because the period would be 90 degrees. Also, if you're dividing, if you're making the graph smaller, if you're dividing by 4, if you're making the graph smaller, the only one of these functions that is actually getting smaller than 0, 90, 180, 270, 360 is answer choice B. So there's a lot of different reasons why you could choose 37, and I would be familiar with all of them because it really does help, especially on a test that can, or a final that can have a lot of different concepts. If you have multiple reasons, if you forget one, you have the other one to rely on. And also, if you think about all these things, it helps you to check to make sure that what you're putting down as the answer does really make sense. So hopefully that was okay. I decided to do it all at once because they were pretty short questions. And if any of that did not make sense, just watch it again, and I'm sure it will. All right, I'll see you when I see you.